Y'all, we're making bread out of cabbage? Come on. Welcome to Highfalutin Low Carb, the almost weekly web series where we find and test the best low carb recipes this crazy internet has to offer. Today, we're making low carb bread, this time out of cabbage. Stay tuned. All right, guys, low carb cabbage bread. Yeah, I'm probably using some air quotes there for sure. I've made this probably a decade or more ago, bread made out of shredded cabbages, but I don't really remember it. But right now, TikTok and the internet thinks it is a brand new thing. And I actually had an old friend send me a message the other day, and she was like, have you ever made this? And it was somebody linking to a TikTok video for making cabbage bread. It's sort of making its way around right now. And I was like, yeah, I seem to remember making it. I think I remembered that you kind of gotta like cabbage. And she's like, well, I do. And so she's gonna try it. And I said, well, I'm gonna try it again too, since it's been that long. So today we're testing low carb cabbage bread. Now, this is obviously just gonna go pretty quickly because there aren't a lot of variations here, but there are two big variations that I found. One is that you start in the microwave with this and then finish it off in a skillet. And then the main standard version is just cooking it in a skillet. We're gonna skip the microwave part of that. I don't see how that's gonna affect anything. Most of you don't like microwave recipes anyway, based on the comments below. So we're just gonna be cooking them here on a stovetop. But the one variance I have found, it's just shredded cabbage and egg, salt and pepper, and then some people add baking powder to it, just a half a teaspoon of baking powder. We know that can cause some magical things to happen, so we're gonna add some baking powder to one of these and try it both ways, see what we think, make a sandwich out of it, and I'll let you know what I think. So this is gonna go very quickly. Now before we begin though, I need to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of this video, Factor. Factor is an online meal delivery service that makes meeting your nutritional goals easier than ever before by providing dietitian-approved, chef-created meals directly to your door. And these are always fresh and never frozen with quality ingredients. I'm talking like real Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, broccolini, leeks, truffle butter, things that you wouldn't expect in a meal that's in a pre-packaged portion. So right now, the holidays are approaching. This is a busy time of year for everybody. And by necessity, a lot of us are going to be in the kitchen more than usual. And the last thing we want to be doing is stressing about meal prep or just getting small maintenance meals together for us to fuel us for the day to do the things that we really need to do and the things that we want to do. And that's where Factor comes in for me. I'm able to get a delicious meal in my belly within just a couple of minutes. And I know that the ingredients are quality. You guys also know that I have been sponsored by and you have used for several years the meal delivery service Green Chef. Green Chef and Factor are both owned by HelloFresh. So I actually get the best of both worlds with pre-made meals from Factor and then pre-packaged ready-to-go ingredients for my own meals with Green Chef. So you guys can save on both of those by using any of my codes today. So right now, Factor is offering a fantastic deal for you guys. If you want to try this out, head on over to factor75.com or click on the link in the video description below and use code Highfalutin50 to get 50% off of your first Factor box and 20% off of your next month of orders. Again, that's code Highfalutin50 at factor75.com or using the link in the video description below, and you'll get 50% off of your first box plus 20% off of your next month of orders. I say this all the time, sponsorships aren't why I do this, they're how I do this. And sponsorships like Factor keep channels like mine on the air, and for that, I am truly appreciative. So guys, if you want to support me, go support them, go to Factor and see what I'm talking about when I say these are fresh and never frozen meals. All right? All right, so let's get started on this. Obviously, we need some shredded cabbage. This is just a green cabbage that I've quartered here. Most of these recipes call for about a cup and a half of shredded cabbage. The original video that's kind of making it popular right now, the guy is using just a slicer. Because I never get to use my OXO little mandolin here, that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to speed this up quickly, but let's see if we can just get some shredded cabbage into a bowl. I'm going to do two different bowls again because I'm going to try one of these with, oh yeah, that looks good. I'm going to try one of these with the baking powder and one without. So I'm going to speed this up and just shred this cabbage out now into a couple of different bowls and we'll go from there. All right. All right, so I've got our shredded cabbage. There's about a cup, maybe a cup and a half. This is one of those recipes you don't really have to make it fully a recipe. There's no measuring this out really. You're just trying to make enough to fill one standard size skillet. I believe this is a 10-inch skillet. You're really making an cabbage omelet, really, is what a lot of people are calling this in the comments that are saying this isn't bread. And I'm going to tell you now, no, it's probably not going to be a bread, but we've made so many alternatives to bread with cottage cheese and sour cream and every other thing under the sun. So I wanted to see if this is a viable option. Now I'm going to tell you now, you probably need to like cabbage. I do. That's not a problem for me. I love cabbage. And the nutritional benefits certainly speak for themselves. There's a lot of fiber. So it's handy in a low carb and a keto diet. So to these, we're each going to add an egg. We'll call this one here on this side recipe number 1. And this is just going to be salt, pepper, and an egg with our cabbage, okay? This one we're going to call recipe number 2. It's going to be salt, pepper, and an egg. And I'm going to add in baking powder to that. Let's just see if that gives it any extra lift and whether that creates a different texture once it's out of the pan. Okay, so salt and pepper in both of these. If you want to add some other flavorings in there, you go right ahead. That would be great. And then again to this one, I'm going to add in a ½ teaspoon of baking powder, okay? And see what this does for us, if this creates any difference at all. If it's even worth bothering with that. And now we're just going to mix these together, and it'll take a couple of minutes. And everybody I've seen that does this, theirs almost comes out foamy. It looks like it has a foam base to it. So whatever you do, just keep going, and I think until we get a foam texture. And I'm going to do that now and speed up so you don't have to watch this, and I'll show you what the final result looks like on both of these. Okay, so both of our egg and cabbage mixtures are ready. Once they sit for a minute, you can see that the egg is going to start to drain through the cabbage. So before you do put it in the pan, make sure that you give it one last mix. And as you can see, it's kind of got a little bit of a foamy texture. I imagine the salt and the motion sort of brings out some of the moisture and water out of the cabbage. That mixes with the egg, and then you're just beating that until you get what we're going to call a batter. So, all right, I'm going to put away this is going to have to be mixed again before we go in the pan with it. This is the one over here. This has the baking powder in it. I'm just going to put it out of the way for now. And I'm heating a skillet over medium heat. Once it's warm, I'm going to hit it with a little bit of avocado oil, and then we're just going to brown this like you do an omelet, flip it over. And again, this is going to go quickly, so I'm just going to speed this up. Let's go ahead and go in the pan. You don't want too much oil because you don't want this to be a greasy mess, I don't think. Make sure your egg is evenly distributed through that shredded cabbage, and let's get it in the pan. Listen to that. Sounds good. Get out of the way. And spread this out into our little cake. You know, this is not an uncommon technique. Think about in Asian cultures, you know, that like the scallion pancakes and things like that, where you're mixing an egg with a vegetable and just sort of creating a little pancake bread-like morsel out of it. And that's basically what this is. And we're going to, I guess, try to make a sandwich out of this thing when we get done, just to see how it's going to go. So I'm going to cook this until it's browned, flip it over, and then this is going to go on a plate, and we're going to put it in the freezer for 15 minutes. It needs to cool down. That sort of helps everything stay together from what I understand. And then when you're using your condiments or whatever, if you're going to eat it as a bread, that keeps that from just being a hot, melty, hot, warm pancake. So again, I'm going to speed this up, flip this over as soon as it gets a little brown. Hope it stays together. Cross your fingers. And I'll meet you back here, and then we'll move on to our second recipe, the one with the baking powder. Okay, see you in just a bit. Okay, so our pancake, our bread is pretty well done. It's not terribly firm. It hasn't really risen a whole lot, but it is brown, probably maybe a little overly brown. But that's where we were to get it to hold together. So I'm going to put this in the freezer for 15 minutes. Be right back. Okay, so let's do this again. This is our recipe with the baking powder in it. This has gotten a little more liquidy. I think that obviously this set for a few minutes. That may add to the bread-like texture. So let's just do this. Repeat all of this again with this recipe, and then I'll flip this over, put it in the freezer, and then I'll meet you back here after about 15 minutes when all this is said and done, and we'll go from there. Test this bread out. Meet you right back here. All right, guys, so we are back. This is our first recipe that didn't have the baking powder in it, and it's pretty thin. As you can see, it's pretty thin. It almost looks like hash brown. I don't know if you watched that old hash brown battle I did probably 6 or 7 years ago. It was a funny one. I'll leave a link up here if you haven't seen it. Gosh, it's old, but it's a good one. This feels very much that texture. It is cool, so it's kind of firm. It's not warm any longer. I don't know that I would try making a sandwich out of this. We'll maybe see what happens, but I'm curious if you get a cross section of this. It's given some crunchy sounds. Again, I love cabbage. This isn't a problem for me. It held up pretty well. Look at that. So it's thin. It's, it's wet. It's pancakey. I would in no way call this bread, but it might hold a sandwich together. What does it taste like? Tastes like cabbage. It's not super strong. It's a very mild flavor. But I mean, look at that. It's holding up pretty well. It can take a licking. You could make a sandwich out of this and it would hold together. I'm going to call this a bread alternative for sure. Like people make sandwiches out of halves of cucumbers. They make sandwiches out of halved bell peppers, things like that. Just something that holds a filling. This would work for that. I'm not mad at this at all. Honestly, if this were... I don't taste a lot of egg. I thought I would. Don't taste any egg. Honestly, you could probably do... What I see doing that is adding a little bit of Parmesan cheese to the batter, making some little pancakes out of this, and eating it as a breakfast with a breakfast sausage and some maybe cheese on top. This is tasty. It ain't bread. Anybody that has told you that this is bread and you're gonna make a sandwich out of it, you are making a sandwich in that you are sandwiching some things between two other things, but that is not bread in any stretch of the imagination. But is it good? Yeah, it's cabbage, white cabbage. All right, I'll be right back. We're going to try the second one, see if the baking powder added anything to that. It's got about 8 more minutes to go in the freezer. I do see why adding it to the freezer, if you're going to use it as a sandwich, is a necessity. It's not super cold. It's not like ice cold, but it is chilled, and that's going to help it hold together. So be right back here in just a minute. All right, so this is our second recipe. This is the one with the baking powder. It came out a little thicker, looks a little more homogeneous, I guess would be the word. It looks like it's holding together better. I'll just say that. Yeah, a little bit thicker, feels a little breadier, I guess you could say. Gonna be the same flavor profile, but gosh, it does really hold together a whole lot better. This looks like definitely something to work with. So I'm going to quickly build a sandwich here just to say we did. And I needed something for my thumbnail photo, and I hadn't had lunch. So this is going to be my lunch and it's going to serve double duty. Come out of there. A little bit of Dijon mustard. And you're going to see me put the dreaded processed American cheese. I don't know why, y'all. I love it. I love all cheese, but there's something about a sandwich and the nostalgia of a square of processed American cheese that just makes me happy. So come for me if you want to. I don't care. Yeah, there's carbs in it. Yeah, it's the worst cheese in the whole wide world. Yeah, it's not even really cheese. I don't care. And this is also some natural ham. This is uncured ham. If you look closely, you can find some brands that have uncured ham. Applegate Farms is one of them. There's lots of them out there. Add a little lettuce to this. And then I'm going to try to get a quick thumbnail photo. See, that looks beautiful, right? I mean, you can't, y'all. That looks pretty good. No complaints here. I'm going to take a quick thumbnail photo, and then I'll be back and we'll see what this, I mean, that holds together really well. I don't know if that camera's going to ever focus on it, please. Yeah. Tell you what. Okay. That ain't bread, but that ain't bad. I mean, it is as good or better than some of the other stuff we have made that I have called bread on this channel. So, I mean, yeah. Cabbage bread, a cabbage sandwich, cabbage pancake, whatever you want to call it. Try it. It's if you, especially if you like cabbage anyway. If you don't like cabbage, don't go near this because it is just cabbage and an egg. But that's going to hold up well. It was pretty quick to make. Cabbage is cheap in the grocery store. I see a lot of upsides to this, and there's a lot of nutrition in that as well. And you're avoiding the dreaded cottage cheese that so many people hate. A lot of the dairy, no nut flours, no pork from pork rinds. I'd probably make that again, to be honest. And I might just make it with a put some crumble sausage in on the top of it and some cheese and some onions and fold it over and make a regular omelet too in the morning for breakfast. So there you have it, folks. Cabbage bread? Nope. But it ain't bad. It's cabbage something. Cabbage sandwich holder. I'll call it that. Cabbage sandwich holder. All right. I love you guys. Thank you for joining me. I say it every time. These videos are a way for me to maintain my low carb way of eating, and looking in the end of that camera as often as I can helps keep me honest. Be sure you've hit the like button down below. Be sure you've hit the subscribe button and the bell button. It'll let you know just as soon as I release a new video. Those are important to keep the channel sort of going. So that's totally free to do, and you can help me out by doing both of those. Follow me over on Facebook and on Instagram. It's just Highfalutin Low Carb. I talk a little more frequently and a little more freely over there. Want to thank my sponsor again, Factor, for sponsoring this. Thank you, Factor. I say it all the time, sponsorships aren't why I do this, they're how I do this, and sponsorships like Factor help keep me on the air, so I'm truly appreciative. Lastly, my rock stars. You know them, you see them every video. Their name is over here scrolling already. These are my Patreon members. Patreon, think of it as the tip jar for the internet. It lets people like you who enjoy what people like me do here on YouTube, and you can give $1 or $2 a month just to keep the train on the track. So if you want to see your name among all these other rock stars, visit me at patreon.com/highfalutin low carb. All right, guys, I love you very much. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, today is a great day to have a great day. Bye-bye.